Start screen, share screen. My internet is also unstable, so it could be that there's like a little bit of glitch if I just have like I'm talking and you don't see what I'm or hear what I'm saying, just let me know, I will repeat it. So today at Liberty Movement in 5 steps, what are the 5 steps? Some tips for making a good shaping plan. And then I will talk about some very useful techniques, especially for at Liberty Training Movement. And then we will have Q&A. If there's questions, put them in the chat, or sometimes put them in the chat and then I will address them. And then at the end, we will have like just a discussion. So let's start with the force-free movement training in 5 steps. So step 1 is building a clear two-way communication with your horse with positive reinforcement. So you all have that, because otherwise if you hadn't, I wouldn't allow you here, because that's a basic that you need to have in order to do something as difficult as movement training for reluctant horses. So step 1, check. Then we have to, step 2 is to divide our goals into tiny steps and make training really, really easy and fun. And there's a balance between easy, which is easy, fun, predictable, but we also, the other part of fun is novelty. So novelty is something new. The brain loves novelty, but the brain also loves predictability. So we need to find a balance. If we raise our criterion too soon, or with too big of a step, then it's too much novelty. The horse tunes out because they don't understand why they don't get clicks anymore, and you can it can all switch into frustration, or that the horse tunes out. So that's always a balance, and we only find that balance by going to our horses, trying it out, and then even then some days are like a little bit different than other days. But the focus is, once you can recognize it, you can recover from it. And if you have thought about your training, what the steps are, and have clarity in your head, you don't have to go to your horse and try to wing it, because that will absolutely get you stuck. I'm speaking from experience because I've done that. So after like teaching the basics are like the key lessons, 6 basic behaviors. So that's table manners, safe behavior around food, and treats in training. I have patience where I teach my horse to stand next to me in a relaxed manner, waiting for a cue. It is also my default behavior. So if they don't know what to do, they get back to a key lesson, patience. It's just learned behavior. It has nothing really to do with patience, but it looks like patience. So then they stand, and then I can recognize, okay, this is their default behavior. And a default behavior is a behavior that they can do anytime and get reinforced without you cueing it. You can put it on cue, but also if you don't cue it and they offer that behavior, you know that they want to tell you something. Then targeting, mat training, which is basically targeting for the feet, and then head lowering and backing. For like movement training, it's important to have like safe manners around food. Targeting is very, very useful, and also patience, that they just can stand and instead of thinking like, okay, I see what I have to do and I'm off, I'm doing this, where's my treat now? So then you can teach your horse to go to the cone. I have a video from which I made this snapshot. And then we have to make it really, really easy in the beginning. And circles are hard for a horse. They are very hard on the inner hind leg, because the inner hind leg is like steering, but also needs to, oh, my internet connection isn't stable. So the inner hind leg is super important, but it's the leg that needs to work the hardest on a circle. Circles are hard on the body, and circles are also no fun for horses. That's why we need to have a lunge line and a whip and sometimes a round pen in order to make the horse go, because if he would have had a choice, he wouldn't do it. So circles are okay, but not too many, and they're hard. So why start with something that is really hard, like a circle? So what is easy? Straight lines are easy. So that's the advantage of using a rectangle. There's like 4 lines and 2 longer lines and 2 smaller lines, or shorter sides. And the shorter sides will come in handy when you teach your horse to anticipate and offer trot and stuff like that. So that's again, otherwise I would choose a big square, but we also have to find points where we will reinforce the horse. And if we reinforce eventually at the cones, then your horse can anticipate and think, okay, I'm going already to the cone after your click, because I know I can get my treat there. And that's how you create more speed. So straight lines are the easiest, so that's the best way to start. Easiest fun, and starting with a really hard thing is no fun. Let's see. Sarah, I've worked on default stand behavior with my horses too, which I think caused Vision some frustration when I didn't reinforce that for a while, waiting for him to initiate movement. I don't want to cause extinction for my default stillness behavior that I work so hard for with him, or cause confusion. How would you recommend rewarding initiating movement without frustration and without hurting the default still behavior? Well, one of the things is, when you have trained behavior A, your default behavior, and then train another behavior, it's natural that the behavior that you trained first will probably get less likeliness to occur, because you're focusing on something else, you're reinforcing something else. So one thing that you can do that is reinforce both, so he always has a choice. The other thing that you can do is practice the stand behavior in a specific context, so you keep that strong, and then train the movement in a slightly different context. So the context will also give your horse information about what to do. And I'll talk about context later, and we can talk in specifics in the Q&A what that could look like for you. And I love questions, because the questions is, yeah, that will just help me help you better. So once your horse can walk around 4 cones in a rectangle or in a square, you can start raising your criterion. You can work on duration of walk. Like in the beginning, I click at each pylon. So in order to create duration, and is that I click intermittently. So then I start from clicking for each cone, then sometimes I skip a cone and I click for the next. So, and because the cones are super clear visual context, your horse will pick up easily, oh, I didn't get a click, let's move to the next one, maybe I get a click there. But you start doing that once your horse already knows what to do and can go around an object consistently. Otherwise you create frustration and you're lumping. So that's one way of working on duration of the walk. Then duration of the walk, you can also, like, putting the cones a little bit further away and still click for every cone, because then the distance, the amount of steps that they have to do is like longer between the clicks. And then you can work on speed. So more active walk, for instance, or you can work on different gaits like trot and canter. But for this course, I would recommend once your horse has solid behavior, walking around the cones, walking around objects in walk, the trot and the canter won't be any problem because your horse knows exactly what to do. If you start focusing on trot or canter too soon, you can get lost and then you have to go back to the basics, which will take longer because you have to repair more behaviors. So it's better to do it like make the foundation behavior like walking around the cones very, very solid. Then the trot and the canter won't be a problem, and you also prevent frustration because you can give your horse that predictability, the clarity, so that will make things easier. If you don't raise your criteria, if you change nothing, nothing will change. That is also like a bit of a pitfall for us clicker trainers because we all like to reinforce our horses because it feels good to hand feed our horses. And we can get kind of addicted to the click too. Like, oh, I clicked. That means, well, yeah, your horse did something right, but actually you did something right too. So sometimes if we keep too long at the same criteria, we get less behaviors and we get frustrated. So you have to, again, you have to find a balance between raising your criteria but not raising them too quickly. And then step 5 is when the behaviors, for instance, walk, are offered consistently, then you can put them on cue and internet connection unstable. So when your behaviors are consistently offered, then you put them on cue. So in positive reinforcement, you add a cue once the behavior is offered consistently. So this is very important, and we, especially if we have like a little bit traditional training, education, it almost starts with a command. You do the command, trot, and then if the horse doesn't listen, you wave your training stick, and then if he doesn't listen, you just do it a little bit more so that you will become predictable. And then the other thing is it gives us clarity if we think like, okay, I want the horse to touch, so I already say touch. But if he hasn't learned to touch the target yet, touch has no meaning. And if you have a really, really smart horse that listens to your vocal cues and he thinks touch, 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 but that connects that to the behavior that he is doing at the moment, which is maybe not even looking at your target, then you can create also like cues that don't work. So once you have offeredly, or once your horse is offering behavior consistently, you can like do different contexts. Like when you work on going around the cone, you start clockwise or either counterclockwise. So training the other side is also lowering your criteria. Don't assume that once he knows how to go clockwise that he will know how to do this counterclockwise. So you have to consider that as two different behaviors, and you have to train that separately. Like other context that can make a difference in the performance of the horse is, for instance, time of day. Like in the mornings and evenings, like before like dusk and dawn, those are typically times of the day that horses are more active. If you observe them in the pasture or when they have like a paddock, or they will move in those times more than in the middle of the day, especially in summer when it's the hottest time of the day. They usually have some siesta time. So you can also use the context in your advantage. Like it took me so long when I had my first horse, pony. It was in the 90s, and it was a little hackney pony, and I had him in front of a carriage. But he was like, if I came back out of university at like 4 o'clock in summer, it was the hottest time of the day in the Netherlands. So he was so slow, and it was so irritating. And I didn't do positive reinforcement then, but I didn't like to use the whip. So I was like constantly in conflict with myself, like, oh, he's going so slow. I'm frustrated, but I don't want to use a whip. But then when I realized by observation that he was way more active when it was a little bit cooler, when it was in the morning, when it was like late at night, then I started using that to take him out and driving him. And it went much better. And I didn't even change anything in my training, just the time of day. So the context is also, you can let it work for you, or you can let it work against you. But sometimes you also have to train with other horses nearby. Maybe your horse is easily distracted, what is going around him, what's going on. Sometimes, like different spots in the arena, I like to train in a specific context, so my environment becomes a part of the cue before I put it on my cue. I call that a training cue. So the horse picks a cue. The horse sees the cone and thinks, oh, I've done walking around the cone, so that's my cue. And they don't have to pay attention to what I'm doing or what I'm saying, because the environment is the cue. The same thing is if you have taught your horse to touch a cone and you want to teach him to go around the cone, he will touch the cone, because that is his cue. Like, okay, I see a target, I see a cone, I have to touch it. So when we realize that the environment is part of the cue that the horse is choosing, if they choose the wrong environmental cues, we call that superstitious behavior. It's like, oh, we won the race and we wore our pink socks, and now we think pink socks will make us win the next race. We put on our pink socks, we win the race. Next time we put on different color socks, we don't win. Oh my God, it's really the socks. That's happening with our horses too, with the environmental cues. So once you know that and you realize that your horse is making like a mistake, so once you realize that your horse is taking environmental cues and making a mistake in order because he offers something different than you intended to, then realize that it could be an environmental cue that he picked up, and he has this superstitious behavior, like, okay, I think this means this. So in training, we want to train the same behavior into different contexts. So a different spot in the arena, maybe if you have an indoor arena and an outdoor arena, if you start consistently in one spot, and then once the behavior is consistently, lower your criteria, build it up in a different environment, which goes way quicker, then we can generalize that behavior. And for instance, if you say trot, then the horse knows, okay, trot means trot, no matter if I'm in the indoor arena, in the outdoor arena, in this spot of the arena or that spot, trot is trot. And that's what we want. Then we can add distractions to help us generalize the behavior, especially if distractions can be like an audience. If you do shows, like that could be a distraction. So those are things that you can practice in order to get the same quality of performance as you get at home, if that's good performance. Like in windy weather, that can influence behavior, rain, etc., etc. So be aware of how much the environment and the context will influence your horse's performance. So you will keep doing that until you get to your end results. We keep training, training, training until we get what we want. Let's talk a little bit about a shaping plan. So a shaping plan is meant to divide your goal behavior into smaller steps. I will write them all down and put them in the course for this at Liberty rectangle exercise. And then it's also a little bit individual. We like the individually thing is that we have to think from the horse's perspective and also think about what behaviors have we already trained that we can use. For instance, if you have the default standing behavior, you can could start with that and then entice your horse to movement, for instance, with an object, and then click for that. So sometimes we can use, often we can use previously trained behaviors to give your horse clarity. If your horse already is very good at targeting, use a target stick to teach your horse to go around an object and but fade it out as soon as possible. And then build confidence in your horse by doing enough repetitions before raising your criteria. It also depends a little bit about what his learning style is. I have two horses. Fionn has really kind of a fixed mindset. Once he has learned something, I wouldn't say he learns slower, but I have to make it into much smaller steps for him. And once he knows something, it's like, no, this is it. Now I demand a treat. That was very much a struggle in the beginning. He's like, I know how to walk around one cone. That's it. That's it. So it was very hard for him to introduce a second cone, but now I have introduced 4 cones. It's super easy because he thinks, oh, I have to trot. That's what I do. I have to trot. Well, great. So in his case, I could like fade out the clicks and treats pretty quickly, but the start was really slow in comparison with Odin, who has like a growth mindset. Oh, I got clicked and reinforced for touching an object. Let's see, there's a new object there. Does it work on this object? And of course it does work on that object because I want to train my horse to take initiative in all kinds of behaviors. That's the struggle with traditionally trained horses. They have systematically undergo punishment for taking initiative. So it can be scary, that part, but once they know that. So for Odin, it was like, okay, I've done this rectangle 3 times now. I'm bored. So for him, I have to create a lot of novelty and I have to be way more creative to make it interesting for him to participate than Odin. Fionn is like, oh, I know what to do. This is what I have to do. I have to trot around the cones. That's it. So Fionn would be like a perfect like lesson horse almost, or a children pony, because once he is trained to do something, that behavior is very strong. Other horses are more flexible that way. So yeah, it each has pros and cons. Useful training techniques. Marking behavior, like the clicker is really so specific. I like to use a handheld clicker in the beginning just because my tongue click is way slower than this for me. So that's a personal preference. I also this is more clear for the horse than a tongue click. But on the other hand, if your horse is scared for mechanical click, tongue click is better. So, but marking the behaviors with your bridge signal. What your bridge signal is, that's personal preference. So if you take a look at The only videos that I have watched is Patricia's video. I will take a look at your videos today. Um, but if you will observe Kika, Kika is offering behavior. But if we don't see it because the animal is behind us, for instance, or we are not focused on that small of a difference, it's hard to mark the behaviors. But what we get what we reinforce. So if we are too late, we reinforce behaviors that we maybe don't want to reinforce. So marking behaviors, that's the most powerful tool. So yeah, keep that in mind. Targeting can be a very, very useful tool. When I teach people key lesson targeting, the target is the goal. The touching the ball on the stick is that is the goal. Like teaching your horse to nose target, nose, touch the target, click. However, if we use targeting as a training tool to teach other behaviors, we have to mark at a different time. So what I want to do, if I want to create behavior in a horse that doesn't move from by himself and he does no targeting, then I show a target. The moment the horse moves toward the target, I click and I take the target away, because it was not the goal to target. The goal was to move. And when you do that consistently, you can wave your target stick. The moment your horse moves toward it, you reinforce that. So targeting, I don't like to use targeting as a goal in movement behavior, because that would be luring. Like you have the target, you have the horse, and then, oh, let's move. And you move and your horse moves toward the target, but you pull the target away. So he will never get that. So you can create frustration. If you build it up well, it could give clarity. But I like to fade out my training tools as soon as possible, so that you have a minimal amount of tools necessary. Because what if your training stick breaks? What if your clicker breaks? What if you forget your clicker? You still want to have those behaviors and you don't want to disappoint your horse. So targeting, when you use it as a training tool, click for movement, not for touching the target. My target behavior for targeting is move toward the target until I click, until you touch it. Yeah, but then the goal is different. The goal is to teach your horse to touch a target. If you use targeting in movement training, the goal is to click for movement. So, and after the click, it's okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, honestly, even when I do my general just targeting practice outside of movement, I just click for, like, my goal is like move towards it until you either touch it or I click for you. And I often click before they touch it. I just want them to move towards it until they like. So even when I'm not doing movement training, I usually do like just move towards it until I click or you touch it, which then I would click when they touch
Yeah,
it.
and that's how I would start targeting. But for me personally, targeting is to teach the horse to touch an object with a certain body part. So yeah, in the beginning with targeting, I also click for moving towards the target, just to give the horse clarity about what he's about to do. So, but you are already doing this, so your horse will know to pay attention to the target, where it is, and that will help you, because it will help your horse get clarity about what to do. So you can totally use that in movement training. So the next one is back chaining. Back chaining is a very, very useful technique to train behaviors, complex behaviors, very fast. In back chaining, every behavior is a part of that's the link. One behavior is one link of a chain of behaviors. So the chain is a sequence of behaviors. Like, for instance, if you want to teach your horse to go to a cone, walk around it, come back, like I did in the video. This is a still out of a video that I will show you. So then back chaining is that you start training the last link in the chain. So for instance, if you want to teach oh, that's my horses are scratching their butts to the guest house. I was like, what? So in back chaining, you teach the behavior in the sequence that is last. You start training that. So, and then you add a behavior before that, and then you add a behavior before that, and then you add a behavior before that. So when I teach the horse to teach the horse to go over to a target or to a cone, walk around it, I start training walk around, and then I start training the distance. So they already know, like, okay, walking around an object will be reinforced. Feeding for position is feeding where you want your horse's head to be. And once you can tell your horse where you want his head to be, is where his body will follow. So what we often see in, if you teach your horse to go around 4 cones, that sometimes they will skip a cone or they will come to the inside of the square or the rectangle. And if we want to prevent that, we have to consistently feed them, so like a little bit away from our body, like I'm doing here, so that they start looking to the outside of the rectangle. And if you do that consistently, if your horse goes to the inside, you reinforce that. So if his head is looking to the outside, his weight is shifted to the outside, and that way you can really shape that he has to take the bends, like very roomy about the pylons. And that's about consistency. So if you later on want your horse to have like a certain head position, you can also like feed for position, because there's 2 reinforcing moments in clicker training. One, the marker, what happened when you clicked, and then the second is when you're actually feeding your reinforcer. So if you feed near your treat pouch, you are reinforcing, come to my treat pouch, come to my pocket, there's the treats. So you want the opposite, safe behaviors around treats, so you want to teach the opposite. So feeding for position can help you give your horse clarity about where you want his head to be, and his body will follow. So this is a very powerful technique that you can use in at Liberty training. And then your rate of reinforcement, like in the beginning, short sessions, super high rate of reinforcement to create clarity, and then you can fade out the clicks and you keep the behavior. And I have a video about how that works too. So here's a video. This was years and years ago. This was basically one of the things how I started this. This was one of the clicker challenges, and the challenge is to start to teach your horse to go around a cone. So a behavior chain is a sequence of several different behaviors in a row, and the back chaining that you mean start at the end of the chain. So start at the end of the chain and train your way backwards. So start training the last link in the behavior chain first. So in this video, the behavior chain is to send Kira to a cone over a distance of several meters, let her touch it with her nose, and then come back. So that's different behaviors. Oh, wait. You have to go back. Yeah. So let's see. Internet connection is unstable, but here we go. So move closer to the cone until you reach the cone, until you touch the cone. So I start near the cone. So now we're adding distance. And here's where keyless and backing comes in. So here I click. So here I can click for her moving without me moving. So I wait until she's ready. I reinforce standing behavior. So this is how you can train your horse to walk over to a cone to 5 meters away and touch it. This was like the goal of that clicker challenge. And this is trained over many sessions and repetitions. And Kira already knew this behavior. So it looks really, really easy, but it's more to give you an idea how you can start. And instead of touching a cone, which was like the purpose in this video for this behavior, you can do the same thing with starting to teach your horse to go around a cone. So I have a video of that too. It's always finicky to go to the next slide with a video if I click too many times. So this is a video of the first session with Fionn. So there's a few things that I would like you to take in consideration when you look at this video. I have a big object in comparison to the size of the horse. Fionn is at this point, he was not overweight, he had no physical problems, so the turn for him is still a pretty short turn. If you work with a full-size horse, I would suggest putting multiple like cones in a row so he doesn't have to make a sharp turn, especially if they're like sensitive on the feet. And then where the camera is at, there is just a track in the snow. So he doesn't like to walk on the ice. So he will follow that track that is already there in the snow, which is like, you know, pounded flat. And so on this side of the camera, he doesn't make a sharp turn because he just follows the easy way, which is that track. So this is also an example of how you can use the environment to your advantage and to train in a specific context. Oh, we go back. So session 1, high rate of reinforcement. You can't hear it, but I will click. Nope. feeding for position. He was just looking towards the trash can. I had a click there. Feeding for position. I want him to go around. And by creating that distance, he will come to me because that's where the treats are. He looked at me. So this is where he needs to go around the snow. Here I'm raising my criterion a little bit too fast because I want him to go like on his own. So here I'm lumping. So displacement behavior, like I don't know what to do. So I go back to what he knows. I should have clicked here, but I didn't. And here I click. Okay, we're back on track. And he thinks, okay. So this is quite difficult for him because he has a fixed mindset, like this is it, this is it. So if I raise my criterion too quickly, that happens. So you saw that I stayed on one leg because in the end, I want to stay in one place and direct him just by pointing to go around the cones. Let's see. So what are some things to take in consideration? Really set a clear goal for each session. If you have a shaping plan, you can pick out like, okay, step 3, I'm focusing on step 3 today, or something else. Like really have a clear goal before you start, because that will help you train the thing that you really want to train. And then you have to start, because you have to have feedback from your horse. Like what I said, you can sit for hours making a shaping plan and then go to the horse and then you notice it doesn't work. For one day, I had a demonstration at the SPCA where I trained horses and rehabilitated horses with positive reinforcement. So I gave a demonstration on an open day, and I had in mind, like, I start one of the horses that is totally new so that people can see how quickly they pick up things with positive reinforcement. Even though for sometimes if you don't know what to look for, it looks like some people say positive reinforcement goes slower, but I don't believe that. But you just have to focus on different criteria to look for. So I wanted to teach this horse targeting. So I had a target stick, a ball on a stick, and I know exactly what to do. Like my shaping plan is look at the stick, move towards the stick, reinforce every interaction with the target, not with the stick. So I had it very, very clear in my mind, and the horse didn't even want to look. He moved away. I'm like, oh, I did not anticipated that. But then somebody else, I had a presentation before we went to the horse. So somebody else said, like, could it be that this horse is afraid of round objects? I'm like, maybe. I said, why do you think that? She said, well, I noticed that the horse moved away from that person, and that person was wearing a toque with a pom-pom on her head. So she took off her toque, and then the horse wanted to interact with her. So instead of my target stick, a ball on a stick, I also have like a tiny cone. So I presented the cone, and voila, I could click for looking at the cone, moving towards the cone, touching the cone, and within a few minutes, the horse touched the cone. So key lesson targeting, check. So that's how fast it can go. And as you could see in that video that I just showed you, I will share the video in the course too. That was literally the first session, and the first session was 2 minutes and 30 seconds. How do I know? Because I have it on video. I could literally see how long is this video. That was 2.5 minute training and was super effective. So yes, it can go quickly if you have like a clear goal for that session in your head, and you're also because you have thought about the thing that you want to reinforce. So yeah, you can be very flexible in your training. I noticed that I was lumping, and you could see that replacement behavior, like I don't know what to do because I want to mug you for treats because that's his go-to, and I want to do what you want, but I don't know if that's the right thing, so I choose a completely different behavior, which is scratching his nose. So that was a clear sign to me, like, oh, he's doing displacement behavior, or it could be displacement behavior. Maybe I'm lumping because yes, I do want him to go by himself, to go around that can. And I was aware of that. I was raising my criteria too quickly. And then we have to evaluate. So when we are evaluating, I will also upload a training journal. The best thing to do is make it a habit after each session to focus on what went well, because that's what we want to see more of and what we do more of, and it makes us give a good feeling if we know what we did well. So I always try to ask, like, find 1 to 3 things that go well, and then one thing that will be your learning point, that will be your focus for the next session. And using a training journal like this, excuse me, that will take less than 2 minutes to fill in, and it will give you valuable information. If you do this consistently over the next 7 weeks, you will have such a valuable tool, because you monitored your whole training, what happened in training. So for me, in this video of Fionn, I would say things that went well. He was eager to he was looking for the desired behaviors. He was eager. He was calm enough to take the treats. He wasn't biting me because he took the treats with his teeth in the beginning. So I can think a lot of things. I had an easy setup. The can, the trash can or the feed can, was very obvious that he had to go around it. And then I made use of that track in the snow, in the ice snow. So yeah, I can put all these things as things that went well. Focus point, the learning point would be, don't raise my criteria too quickly. And then I also wanted to phrase it in a positive way, because don't raise your criteria too quickly. It doesn't say what I have to focus on. So when I phrase it, keep raising your criteria in little increments, and make enough repetitions in order before you go to the next criterion. That would be phrasing it in a positive way, because then the next time, even if it's like 2 weeks from now, I read that, okay, oh yeah, my pitfall was lumping, making the criteria too big, too fast. And okay, what do I have to do? Okay, raise my criteria after enough repetitions with small increments. So it's super clear. So you can become your own coach. And if you do this consistently in practice with this, that's super valuable after this course, to keep that, use that training tool, your training journal, into all other training. So the evaluation is super valuable, and that's why I want you to make videos of your training. So let's talk about the at Liberty rectangle short sessions. My first session was 2 minutes 30 seconds. Have a clear plan, high rate of reinforcement, and then fading out tools like clicks as soon as possible. internet connection unstable. Anyway, so in the beginning, if you look back at the video, I point, but then I realized like, okay, I want to fade that out, and then I use my whole hand as a signal. That's also like a little bit of a safety thing, that if he gets frustrated that he doesn't bite my finger, because this is way harder. And also sometimes I use a training stick, and the way you can fade out your training stick is to, I don't have a training stick near me, but in the beginning you keep your training stick and you keep it, this is the target, this is the stick, and you hold it on the other end. But if you keep holding it closer towards the target, then it won't be that much different if the target one day is all gone and you keep your arm movements like the pointing. So you have to think about like, what movement does your arm make when you're holding and you're using your target to give your horse clarity, because that can be the start of your body language cue later on. So here is a video of Fionn. Like I said, once he has learned something, he's super eager and he likes this. So now I'm standing in the middle. The cones are the cue at this point. He knows what to do. So I click when he is almost at the cone, and then I click, I want to feed him at the cone. I did that in the beginning, but he's just having this much speed. So, and then this is how I slowly put the cones further away, and I click for a lot of things. So here's already one step canter. For him, my feedback is counterclockwise is difficult for him. So I want to have a body worker look at him. Oh, yeah. He skipped the cone, and I let it slide this time because his going around the cone is solid. But in the beginning, when he skipped the cone, I let him go back with my target stick, so I could click like go back, click, go back, click, go back, click, go around the cone, jackpot, and then go to the next cone, jackpot, like really focusing on, pay attention to the cones, because you have to go around the cone. And I click for a lot of things, like I click for movement, I click for going around the cone, I click for changing directions, and so on. So I click for a lot of times. So if we look at this again, like here I'm pointing, and I'm also feeding for position. So here I'm feeding for position. I'm feeding on my right side because I want him to go also around me. So here again, I clicked when he was moving slightly forward. And I'm trying to keep my feet still, and that was super hard to do because it's so easy to walk, because that is the cue for most horses. When you walk, they walk. And that's the struggle in reverse round pen often, that once the trainer doesn't move, feeding for position, once the trainer doesn't move, the horse doesn't want to move. Once the target doesn't move, the horse doesn't want to move. And then people get stuck because they don't realize that they have become the cue. Here again, feeding for position. I'm trying to stay where I'm at. So yes, one step, I'm clicking, and then I'm feeding for position. So I'm feeding him more forward towards that can. So he has to go around it because that's the easiest. So in this way, yeah, a lot of things happen in this video as long as you know where to look for. Like, yeah, displacement. I don't know what to do. Okay. And then I thought I'll kind of block him and maybe he will go around the cone, and that didn't work, so I had to step back. And that's why I didn't think of clicking for that again from walking around me. I should have clicked there to give him a little bit more clarity, but my rate of reinforcement is pretty high and he got it. So yeah, that's hindsight. Questions?
Okay, I do have a question. My cat really likes your he was watching the training video of him walking around on the little screen. Um so my question, I guess, so obviously we've only done a couple like mini sessions and a couple, training days with like going around the object so far. My horse's vision's very was I tried at first just seeing if he would, because he'll follow. I will use my hand to kind of guide his body, move his body around sometimes, like to follow it. But it wasn't clear enough for him for the cone. He was getting really confused, and I didn't want to create. He was getting frustrated when I tried to not use the target. So I started with the target. I've been using the target, and I do want to fade it out. I want to be able to fade it out as quickly as I can. I don't want to. I guess what I get nervous about is I don't want to accidentally use it too long to where it gets too hard for him to do without it. But at this point, he like, and maybe after a couple sessions, this won't be a problem. But at this point, he won't do it without the target yet. He just gets he gets stuck at the point when he's supposed to kind of go around it. He'll get stuck. And if I try to kind of guide with my hand or wait for him to take a step, he'll just kind of like start getting kind of like frozen up, or he'll like back up.
So
He'll just
what
get
kind of
confused.
target stick are you using? Is it like a ball on a
It's
stick?
just a whip, or it's like a whip thing with a little pool noodle on the end. So
Yeah.
I was like, so I don't know if I should just. My thought was try to use it, like maybe just only use it to get him around that back part of the cone, and then use my like just body language or just kind of for the rest of the time. And then like you were saying, fade it out slowly to where it's like just I make it shorter. Would that be what you
So
would
what you
do?
can do is use your target to teach him to go away from you. And then once he is at that point where he is at going around your object
The
or your
back,
cone,
yeah.
especially if you have like a bigger cone that they cannot kind of keep skipping it or
Stepping, yep.
stepping over it, because if you start with a cone like this high, they
Yeah,
don't
it's a
pay
tall
attention
one.
to it probably. So that is just using make it easy for them. Like if you have also, if you, for instance, last week I was helping somebody and she didn't have big cones, but she did have standards for jumps. So they're tall. So there's only two options: going on this side or going on that side. So that's easy. So you can use your target to lead him like around an object. I have noticed that once we start paying and clicking and paying attention to what his inner front leg does, if
Yeah, that's what I
this
was
is the trainer,
looking at.
this is the target, or this is the cone, and your horse is here, then if you pay attention to the front leg that is closest to the cone, once he has put his weight there, he cannot go over the cone or in front of the cone.
Right.
Like that is the moment basically that he has to go around it. So like if you pay attention to that inner front leg, that is your that's where you look for the criteria, because if you click too soon and the horse is like at this point or at this point and you click, he's like, okay, I come and get the treat here, and then he skips the cone. So you want him to go like a little bit further so he cannot skip the cone, so that you really teach him, and you can set it up in different situations to teach and generalize go around the cone. And around the cone, another way of looking at it is that you teach your horse to keep the object between him and you. And it can be all kinds of objects. You can put like a line of cones, and every time that inner leg is on that side of the cone, click and treat, and you treat away from your body so that he doesn't come on your side of that line of cones. So those are all things. So what you can do is to use the target to send him away around the cone, then click for around the cone, and then feed for position. So feed a little bit in front of him, so he has to forward shift, so he has to think forward, not like that he really has to do 5 steps. But if you do that in a smooth movement, if you watch that video of Fionn in winter again, you will see that I first taught him the food will always be brought to you. But then I use it like, okay, come and get it. Like he has to do like 1 step. And that's how you can create fluent movement in your training. But if
And
you
I guess,
do
oh, go
that
ahead,
too
sorry.
early, they skip the cones, come like, where's my treat?
Yes. And I guess my question is kind of like as far as fading out the target, like I don't want to rely on it. Or would you just suggest basically using the target? I guess I'll just keep using it for now and just try to start like using it less, fading it out. I just mostly get nervous that I don't want to make that the only cue. I want him to start like learn to do it without relying too much on the target. So I guess after you see my like the videos, obviously that's like the first time I think we did it with the target. So it's like it's still in the beginning. But I guess when it comes to fading it out, like you would say just use it to get him to the back of the cone. And then just start fading it. I mean, just is it okay to just keep using it for now to get him to the back of the cone if he needs it, I guess? Okay.
Until he gets the behavior, because it's a training tool. It's something to help him. But I do want to kind of warn every one of you, if you don't fade it out, it become a crutch. And then you get into like you will run into problems because one day you forget your target stick, it broke, whatever, it's still in your car, you don't have it, and then you can't do anything because it's so much part of the environmental cue that your horse is like lost. That's what I don't want. It's a tool to train a behavior.
Same.
So once the behavior is trained, once your horse offers consistently, oh, I have to do something going around the cone or something, then you can fade it out. The moment that you fade
Okay.
it out and your horse is like, what? Where is it? Then you know that you can say, okay, here it is. There you go. And then the moment he moves, you click and you take it away, the
Okay. So
target.
I
So
don't have
that,
to start fading it until he really knows the behavior better.
yeah.
Okay. I just didn't want to fade it out or not fade it out. I wanted to understand when I should fade it out because I was like, if I do it too soon, he's just going to be frustrated. But if I do it too late, it'll become a crutch. So I wasn't sure. So just
And
I'll keep using it
basically,
until he knows it better.
we cannot predict it. We basically have to ask, are you ready? And if he says like, where is the target? I don't know what to do. Okay,
Yeah.
apparently that was a no, I'm not ready. Or it could also be like I became too reliant on that target, and then you have to start it out. But then you change the setup. Maybe you go stand closer to the cone and you raise your rate of reinforcement and your clicks. So even without that target, oh, there's so much clicks going on. So, and it also, yeah, it depends a little bit on the horse too, but we will basically have to ask the question, are you ready to go without that? And yeah, maybe he says, no, where's my
Okay.
target? Yeah, but because you are already prepared, you will recognize that, oh, he's not doing it without a target. Well, and then you have to do more repetitions. Okay, target a little bit shorter, like whoop, there it is,
Yeah.
now it's gone. And then he will start relying on the other cues. Oh, I see a cone. That cone is there consistently. That cone has also something to do with the clicks. Okay, let's move around the cone, because in this movement training, the quickest way to train movement is to use environmental cues. Verbal cues, I think, are very is hard for horses to learn. Body cues are easier. But if we can use the cones as a verbal cue to walk around, and then we can create trot canter very easy, even without cues like trot and canter. And then in different contexts, like riding or at liberty without the cones, you can use that. But like in this setup, the cones will become the cue. So you don't have to worry about cues for now. The cone must become the cue, because that's the most reliable, because it will be always there in the setup for the at liberty rectangle. You create so fast trot once your horse knows this. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions, Rachel?
Not for Bo. I mean, a lot of time, like Bo, honestly, he has a lot of experience with a lot of this stuff already. It's just that, you know, the thing I think my one of my biggest frustrations with Bo is that I feel like honest to God, I really have done tons of this stuff already, but I feel like I often not often, like really a lot. I feel like I have to go backwards all the time and redo it. So this year, he had colic surgery back in December, and so we went some time, without riding or doing anything. And I feel like I've had to go straight back to the beginning. Okay, like stand to be saddled, stand facing forward, don't mug me, move forward on your, with your voice cues and things. Like I just feel like I had to start straight from scratch, and I feel that way often with him. I feel like throughout his life, I have to go backwards more than I move forward. And whereas with Rory, it's really interesting with Rory because I can do something with her one time and not pick it back up for a long time. Like even like 2 or 3 months down the road, and then she'll do it better than she did the first time. It's so it's so odd to me how she's like she will she will move forward with from something that I did from so long ago and I haven't done it. But him, I feel like I have to constantly go back and reteach things I've taught him 100 times. Um,
What do you think is the difference, like in character, or maybe in like in history, how they have been trained?
I really don't know. Like I really don't. I feel like I'm very responsive to their energy and stuff like that. And so a lot of times whenever I'm telling you things, like even like whenever I feel like like a video or snapshot shot can only give you so much, because a lot of things that I'm telling you, like I know that he enjoys shows versus how he feels at home. It's not just what he's doing and things like that. It's the energy that I feel from him. The He feels like he has really good energy at shows. He just feels like it just feels good. But that's
Yeah,
something it's really hard to communicate even with snapshots of videos or whatever, because you're not there feeling the energy.
absolutely. But like the feel is so important, because that's like I sometimes talk about, like sometimes people ask me like, do you like to ride horses? And I'm like, well, I only like to ride horses that love to be ridden and that enjoy it.
Exactly.
And
Me too.
that's you can feel that, and you can feel that that's so clear. And sometimes you cannot see that from the outside, what is happening there. And like horses and humans, you get to that synergy energetically. So usually how you feel is sometimes also how he feels. And if you feel really
Mhm.
really good and like that he enjoys it, I 100% believe you. Like, yeah, that's
Yes,
how
but
he feels, because you can, yeah, notice that.
yeah, yes, and I am using this training partially for Rory and not just Bo, because she Bo, we've done a whole lot of movement type stuff before. So we kind of have a feel for some of it already, but Rory, I have not been able to teach her anything past a walk thus far, like movement wise and shaping her. And I haven't quite been able to figure out how to, every once in a blue moon, like if I trot and like get really excited and get her to trot with me, but I'm struggling with, even if I'm like way ahead of her, she's just like, all right, I'll catch up in a minute. She's
Well,
she's
that's
not.
it. Like if we start to run, we are the cue. When we run, they follow. And
Yeah.
it's positive reinforcement. So basically, they can follow any gait they want because there's choice. And we have
Yes.
no way to coerce them into a trot. So when I started movement training many years ago with Kira, before she got laminitis, that's where I got stuck because I'm like, oh, bad word, but I'm doing more than my horse. This is backwards. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how I slowly started to think about, like, from the principle of learning and motivation, what am I reinforcing? Obviously, I'm reinforcing that I'm walking there and she's walking 10 meters behind me, like, I'll be there one day. And then I click. So I basically reinforce her for being very slow. And I realized at one point I was the cue. And then I'm like, what if something else in the environment becomes the cue? What if a cone becomes the cue? Then I can send her away from me. I don't have to move. Yay! Because I was at a boarding facility with hawk fuel and it was so heavy to run and jog in that. I'm like, you have 4 legs, you do the work. And she needed to have that exercise. So, yeah, changing your setup that you teach your horse to move without you being the cue will really help you move forward in movement training. So what is the horse that you would like to do this training for? Because you have 2 horses, they're completely different.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest pick one and then lay the foundation, practice with the ideas, and then you can do it. You can implement all those things that you hear in the next weeks. Then you can implement it for your other horse, and it will make it easier than trying to train 2 different horses with 2 completely different learning styles, because that can be frustrating and you will compare, like, oh, this horse is faster, the other one is smarter, and it can cause confusion. And what I want is the opposite. I want you to have clarity so that you know, okay, I started with horse number 1 and we did this. Let's do all that with the other horse and see where we're at. How does that sound?
It has to be for, I mean, this has to be for Bo because he's the one that I'm concerned about his weight and everything. I'm just trying to take the principles and things like that and trying to use them to help Rory with movement. It's very weird to me that I just can't, I I can't seem to motivate her into moving any faster than what she does. She just is like, see you in a minute. She's very calm, honestly,
So,
compared to
and you
Bo.
posted a video of Bo.
Yes, that's Bo.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
He's
you
the
want to
fat one.
do it with Rory.
Well, no, I'm gonna do with Bo because he's the one that's really fat and he's the one that I have to get him just exercise on a regular basis. All my videos are gonna be with Bo.
Okay, good. Yeah, for Bo, he's a gelding, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I did notice some arousal.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I'm thinking. Like, it can be best case scenario, I would love to work on getting that arousal down and then working on the movement. But like since we're in a group program and it's a movement program, I cannot focus on the arousal only. And the arousal, I'm working on the same issue with a private client, and there's so much to it. So I won't go into that arousal part too much because it's basically a different topic, if that's okay with you. Like you can systematically get that away by basically giving more clarity, more predictability, and enough novelty. Where's that balance to make it engaging for him? But yeah, we will probably not see like a huge decrease of that arousal in this
The only
setup.
thing, the only thing that I have found, well, there's two things that I have found that helps with that. One is me putting treats on the ground and letting him like have a break and just sit there and munch on the ground for a minute. That will help. But or getting, you know, movement in straight lines where we trot around for a little bit, that will help with that too. But it very usually it quickly does come back up though, the arousal level. And I've worked with a lot of different clicker trainers, and I have had a lot of different clicker trainers say, you know, he's really a conundrum because he is a horse that you know, they say cold-blooded or hot-blooded, and he's somewhere in the middle. He's both. He can be very lazy at times and very cold-blooded, what you would call, but then other times like he can get more highly aroused, tense, and when he was younger that involved bucking as well. It doesn't anymore, thankfully. But yeah, he's kind of in the middle, and he can go either way between calm and tense, and he can fluctuate. But the biggest thing is I've got to get him to where he will exercise, and I don't have to do quite as much exercising with him. So I just need to but I can see just from the videos that you have already shared and things, the setup for that. And I think that's been my biggest problem is like I didn't know how to do the setup to make that happen. But now that I see like starting small with your cones and widening them, that gives me a good baseline to go off of.
Because this is also like this is the biggest pitfall for everybody, because we are humans and we are just in I'll get to you, Sarah. Great that
You're
you're
good.
yeah, it's
You're
good. So this is how we learn as children. We learn by copying, and we, because it is a good strategy. Oh, you see your parents walk, let's try to stand up and walk. Our parents didn't teach us like grab onto a table. We had to figure that part out ourselves, and it's also a little bit natural. Let's see if I can keep my face in anyway, because we don't have light, because we don't have, it's the battery. So one of the pitfalls is that if we see like, oh, that person trained that we start at the end goal. Like you see that in dressage all the time. I have fallen for that too. Like when I had my first pony. Oh, Ankie van Gunsven, Dutch Olympic rider. Oh, her horse keeps his head like that. How do I create that with my horse? Won't do it. Let's pull the rein. Oh, this looks like the end goal. Like, and then I get stuck because my horse never wants to move forward because I had him like the reins too tight. So that's a little bit about like the setup as well. Like, yeah, it's so, yeah, if you see like 4 pylons, that's not where I start. And it's like with Kira, I started with going to 1 pylon, and then I also kind of figured out like, what if I do a slalom? And that wasn't with this purpose, because it was clicker challenges that I did, but I wanted to train everything myself first to see what are some of the struggles that we, will encounter. So for Kira, I taught her to slalom. So go around the cone, this side, go around this, around that. But I had like 8 years of solid positive reinforcement training. So she picked that up. And then I realized like, okay, that's a little bit too difficult because the coming on this side of the cone is not useful for that at liberty exercise. So then I thought like, what if you just put a line of cones, and I tried it out with different clients, and like put a line of cones and then click each time, just a straight line. The cones are in the middle, the trainer walks on this side, the horse walks on that side, and then click at every time you meet a cone. So in that way, you can already create that idea of like the cones, there's something with the cones, something good is happening with the cones. And if you train your horse consistently to be on the other side of the cone, and then you create a little bit of distance, and if they want to skip the cone, you use your target stick, and that's how you build that up. But yeah, I see a lot of people like, oh, it's a rectangle, let's start with 4 cones in a rectangle, and then going from cone to cone, there's a lot of meters where there's no clicking, no reinforcement. The rate of reinforcement is basically 0. In order to get to the next cone, we have to walk. So we already teach the horse that we are the cue, because if we follow the trainer, there will be a click. So the moment the trainer stands still and says like, go around the cone, the horse is like, you're not moving. I better not move, because only if you move, there will be a click. So we have taught the horse to focus on something that we were not aware of. And that can be a big struggle. So yeah, it's good to talk about these things and ask ourselves, if our horse does something that we didn't anticipate, like what is happening? What does the horse think he must do? Well, apparently he thinks he must skip the cone. Why is that? Asking those questions gives us a lot of insight, and it's fun to do this in a group, because we will see how different horses will react different to similar setups because of their character, their reinforcement history, the relationship with the trainer. So yeah, that will just give us a lot of new ideas too. Yes, Sarah.
I just have a quick question about the physical setup for teaching to go around like 1 cone. Because obviously my horse is bigger than Fiona and can't like twist around as much, but I am having a hard time figuring out how the best way to set it up to. Did you say like, I don't know, because I don't want to confuse him more. He just gets, if he starts getting a little bit unclear, he starts getting really like, he'll very easily be like, oh no, I'm out, and he'll kind of leave. Or if he gets confused, he gets can get frustrated really easily if he gets confused. And so I don't want to confuse him by having like, anyway, I just want to make it really clear.
How many
and I also
cones
want to
do
make it
you have?
physically easy.
Yeah.
I have 12.
Perfect. Make a lineup, 12 or 6 in a row, 6 in a row. So then you ask your horse, you can use your target, but you can also shape it just and put them so close together that it will be hard for your horse to skip through them.
Okay, so like put them kind of like in a little bunch on each end, so have them go
On a
around the bunch of
line,
cones.
I would say,
Oh.
let's see, I think I have a whiteboard here. Yeah, let's see if I can use this. Loading the whiteboard. Let's see.
Sorry, I lost you. I think I lost all. I heard you say something about a line, and then I lost everything after that.
Okay. Create. Okay. Yeah, my internet was gone. Can you see the whiteboard?
Yes.
Okay, let's see. So if you have 12,
Mm-hmm.
2, let's see, copy, paste, 3, 4, 5,
I can't
6.
see.
Oh, you can't see
Oh
the
wait, now I can. Now I
rectangles?
can. I had to drag. I just had to drag the screen. Now I can.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have 12.
Hmm.
So what I would suggest is your horse will be purple. So your horse walks here.
Hmm.
And then you will walk on the inside. I'll give you green. So you will walk here. And then you can click every time his inner leg is just behind that cone.
Each of the cones.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So just have
So,
him walk down the line, click each time his inner front leg is behind a cone, and do it
yeah,
for every cone, and then have him turn and go the other long way.
yeah, exactly. So let's see if I can.
Perfect. Okay, I'll
So
definitely
this
try
is,
that out.
so the little, like, that's the hoof print of his inner front
Yes.
leg. So that is what
Yes.
I want you to focus on for the click, because that will really
Okay.
help. Because once he has put weight on that front leg on the other side of that cone, there's no returning. Like he cannot
Yeah.
come to this side, it's the easiest.
Okay.
So the
Cool. Because
distance
yeah, the first
between,
time I did it, I just did it like the same way with Theon, where I just had him going right around it, which like he was, doing a good job this first time, but this will probably be physically easier for him to do.
so then the distance between the cones would be so close enough that he cannot go in between.
Yeah.
So usually one pace of his length will be good, because the longer you make the line, the more forward movement you create, and the more
Yeah.
movement in a line you create.
Okay, cool. I'll try that setup next
And then
time.
when you are at this side, I would make the distance between these cones like 2 or 3 meters, so that your horse can make like an easy bend between this cone here and this cone here.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you make the
Cool.
lines too far apart,
I want to go in the middle.
you also create that, okay, I have to follow my person, and you
Hmm.
don't want that. So you can set it up like that,
Okay.
and then what you can do is fade out some of the cones
Yep.
slowly, and then until you have 4 cones left.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
So that's one
I like
idea.
that.
There's other ideas, but I would, if you have 12 cones, I would start there.
Okay. Sounds good. I can do that. And is that so then when am I like do you think I should switch to kind of doing this instead of teaching the go out and go around object?
It's difficult to say. It depends a little bit about how your horse converts the idea. You can do both.
Right.
Like do
Okay.
this first, so he starts connecting cone in between me and the trainer means something, and then you can do that. But if you because if you teach your horse to go around one cone,
Hmm.
you still have that he has to make that bend so sharp,
Right.
and that's the whole thing that I don't want you to do.
Right. With the circle, yeah.
So what you could do is like set up 3 cones with 1 horse length
Hmm.
instead of 1 cone, because then the turn will be so sharp. So if you have like 3 cones, that it is, so that the bend is a little bit more friendly,
Okay.
and then you can
Okay,
fade
so
out like the other 2 cones, and then and reinforce him if he like if this is your horse and he starts to take the bend here, that's okay. But one day, like when he's looking outside to the outside of the corner, and this is only in the training phase, so in the like working towards your goal phase, the goal
Yeah.
would be to let your horse look to the inside to go around the cone. But for now, if he looks to the outside, he will make the room like the bend more roomier. If he looks like, if he's already looking to the outside, even though
Yeah.
his body is bent like that, he will move towards that. And if he moves like this, that is more preferable than moving like this and then make a
Mhm.
sharp turn. So
Okay. So do
all
you think then,
small
so I should,
things that you can say, like, okay, he's moving towards the outside, he's making the square bigger. That's a very important criterion to look for and reinforce, because we are on the inside and the treats are on the inside, so most likely is that they want to come to the inside.
yeah, okay. So you would recommend starting with the setup with the 6 cones in 2 lines and clicking for his, like, passing the cones with his inner front leg. Start
Yeah.
with that, and then then start working in the going around, but can make it a little bit bigger corners with the 3 cones.
Yeah, that's the reason to put 3 cones on a row, so that automatically the bend will become not as sharp. Because
Yeah,
if especially if they're overweight or recovering laminitis, is your horse like that?
he's overweight.
Sharp turns are so hard, so yeah, make your setup as friendly and easy as possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, because right now he was going and then because he'll take steps, but then he like moves his hind end and then he'll take, it's like he has to do the awkward like turning his like body, like he has to move his hind end weird to spin around that tight corner. So yeah, okay, I'll try it with those
yeah, so
bigger
every
setup.
time we see, this is for everybody also who watches the replay, if you see that your horse is making a sharp turn, ask yourself, how can I make that turn like friendlier and easier for the horse? And this is just the beginning, so this is just like, yeah, do that for a few sessions, and then if your horse
Just
gets it,
experiment.
like creating a little bit of distance so you can do ascend away from you,
Mhm.
and then come back in the Facebook group and ask me what the next step is. If I give you all the steps right now, it's so enticing to go to the step 40.
Okay, so just I'll experiment with those 2 different. I'll experiment first with the lines, and then I'll kind of experiment. And depending on how he's doing with that, I could then experiment with a little bigger turn with the 3 cones to send around, and I'll just see kind of which one seems to like click with his brain better.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
yeah, because like keep in mind it must be, oh, my battery is running low, so we have to quit soon, or my laptop will quit and we still have no power. So yeah, like ask yourself, like, what is the goal and how can I make it easy for my horse? Because if it's physically hard, it will start to be painful, and you will lose him, like he won't be engaged.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Perfect. Rachel, a question?
Oh, I had to take you off mute. Sorry. No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, if there's any questions, put them in the Facebook group, tag me. Facebook is finicky, so sometimes I don't get noticed that somebody posted something. Feel free to DM me. Hey Sandra, I posted something. Have you seen it? My purpose is to answer within 24 hours. So don't hesitate. Just don't wait too long. After an hour, you can just send me a DM. When I'm back at my computer, I will see it. So,
Sounds good. Thank you.
okay. Happy horse training, everybody.
Okay,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.